Hi there everybody, I'm Matthew Lester from the Rhodes Business School. It's budget day again, and this is what the Minister of Finance, Pravin Gordhan, has had to say about the state of the nation's finances. Well, it starts off with growth rates. Last year they predicted, Jill Marcus said 2.8%, Lagarde of the IMF said 2.5%, and Pravin Gordhan said 2.7%. Lagarde came in under budget, but they say it will still all improve to 4% at some point in the future. The problem that they get with this is that tax rates are not growing fast enough. In the glory days of manual, the tax receipts were growing by 12% per annum, and today tax receipts are only growing by 8% per annum. The problem is compounded by a shift in the emphasis of tax collections. Back in the days of manual, we looked at corporate tax, VAT and personal tax collecting about the same amount. But by 2012 we see an increased tax burden on the individual taxpayer as company tax collections have fallen away and VAT collections are struggling to recover. The smaller taxes combined can do little to stem this problem. In the 2012 budget, there was a shortfall on VAT and personal tax, compensated for by an overcollection on corporate tax. That brought the total tax collections in bang on target. It's not going that well this year, with corporate tax collections and personal tax collections under budget, and VAT came to the rescue this year so that the deficit could be contained. So at the end of the day, SARS is 16.3 billion rand off budget at this stage, hoping to improve by the 1st of April. So what we see is that the increase in VAT collections that has been identified since 2011 in fact has saved the day for 2013. In establishing a budget for 2014, they need 898 billion rand. Again, it's a cocktail predominantly of personal tax, VAT and corporate tax, the other small ones making up about 20% of the pie. If one analyzes where the money is coming from, they want only 13 billion extra from companies next year. That's less than last year. About the same from dividend tax. And then all the transaction tax collections are budgeted to have about the same increase as last year. They're asking for a bit more from VAT, even though they have not increased the rate. And the personal tax increase over the year will be slightly smaller than last year. On company tax collections, there was good news. They were very concerned that post-Marikani, tax receipts from mining could hurt the economy. Well, actually, mining has declined to only 5% of total corporate tax collections, and there's a lot more at stake. If one looks at the top 500 companies, they are statistically insignificant in the context of 2 million South African companies, but they contribute about 60% of the total tax collections. The good news is that corporate tax rates have not increased overall in the 2013-14 budget. On the revenue side, we see an overall effective corporate tax rate, dividend tax included, of 38.8% compared to 40% if a trust is taxed, and the maximum rate for the individual being 40%. On capital account, there was no increase in CGT inclusion rates this year, so the capital rate for companies remains at 30.87 compared to 26.67 for trusts and 13.33 for the individual. The individual rate remains king. But watch out, there is an announcement in the budget review that the attribution provisions of Section 7 and Section 26 will be revisited during this year, and that attribution will no longer be possible in forthcoming tax years. There's going to be a lot of clean-up work required there. Capital gains tax receipts have actually fallen post the global credit crunch, and they are hoping that these will recover. What is important to note is that the major part of CGT receipts come from companies. Individuals has declined to only about 2 billion rand per year, and total CGT receipts are only 10 billion rand per year, compared to total personal tax of over 300 billion rand. We can see it's pretty significant. On the personal tax front, there are last year's tables, and everybody was predicting a 42% band to be put in up the top. Well, it didn't happen. Answer no, we're going to go forward again and give a fiscal drag adjustment as we've done in previous years. So we have a new table where they have given away 2 billion rand to the sub 165,000s, another 1.5 billion rand to the next level, and so on. totaling 7 billion rands worth of tax concessions in the 2014 tax year. Please note that that doesn't mean that tax collections from the individual will not increase by 32 billion rand overall. This is purely the inflationary adjustment, but it is very generous in these hard times. If one looks at who is paying the personal tax in South Africa today, we see a situation of 32% of the taxpayers by number, about 1.2 million people, paying 3% of the personal tax. Then we get 1.8 million paying the next 28%, and 12% of the taxpayers, or 453,000, paying 21%. Then the numbers start to decline rapidly, and we see that by the time we get over R1 million taxable income per annum, we are looking at a very small number of taxpayers. Here's a shocking fact. If one looks at taxpayers earning more than R1 million per year, they will pay 94 billion rand in tax in the next tax year out of total personal tax collections of 306 billion. The interest exemption last year remained unchanged. This year they have revisited it and put in a tiny increase. The project to bring in approved tax-free savings accounts is still on track for 2015. That will be an annual 30,000 rand contribution out of after-tax income with a lifetime limit of 500,000. Other personal tax amendments include that the medical rebate has been increased by 12 rand per month for the first two beneficiaries and a mere 8 rand per month for subsequent beneficiaries. There's a new deal on bursary schemes for employees. That's quite generous. There is a new provision to carry forward disallowed Section 18A donations to recognized charities. And disability premiums paid to the different types of policies will receive attention during the forthcoming year. The youth employment incentive is apparently to happen still, but there is no detail. When one looks at retirement funds, there have been some small changes proposed. We get investments into retirement funds will remain tax deductible. Capping will happen at 350,000 from 2014. They are no longer going to differentiate between 45-year-olds and older. And an overall employer contribution of 27.5% will be implemented from 2014. Interest income will remain exempt in retirement funds, so will dividends, and so will capital gains. And then when you die, there will no longer be any CGT payable or estate duty on a retirement fund payout. Retirement funds remain the investment vehicle of choice. There has been no increase in the lump sum tax-free portions of retirement fund payouts. This is to be expected as government is trying to encourage preservation. The big V in tax remains VAVI, not VAT. There has not been a VAT increase. In spite of the fact that consumer confidence is down, VAT receipts saved the day in 2013 and have got a lot to add to the pie in 2014. The residential property market remains as dead as a duck, so transfer duty rates remain unchanged and the primary residence allowance remains unchanged. The fuel levy was surprising. Last year's fuel levy was an increase of 28 cents per litre. One was expecting a lot more this year because of the Gauteng toll debacle. Wrong again, Lester. The increase in the fuel price is going to be 22.5 cents per litre, giving an extra 3 billion or so to the National Treasury. The containment of the fuel levy increase this year means that government definitely intends to have the Gauteng toll roads up and running shortly. Sin tax increases were moderate. Beer is up by 7 cents per beer this year, less than last year. A bottle of DOP goes up by 3.60 Rand this year compared to 7 Rand last year, and a packet of smokes goes up by 60 cents to 10.92 Rand per pack. This is all great news for South Africans. We've got to look for where is the hole. And we've got to say that comes from overseas, as does everything. The problem that we have is it leaves a bigger budgeted deficit than was predicted. In 2013, Pravin Gordhan predicted a GDP to deficit ratio of 4.6%. It's come in at 5.2%. And they've kicked their target of 3.1% into 2016. The big question is, will the international rating agencies accept this, and what will the effect be on the rand? because we've already got difficulties in the Reserve Bank with Jill Marcus. We have already during 2012 experienced problems in the balance of payments current account. We have seen little improvement in exports and inward investment, but we have seen a lot of money going out in imports and outward investment. Increased oil prices, the effect of the international investment deleverage, and post-Marikana jitters have all combined to put us in a position that the balance of payments of current account, which improved in the early days of the Marcus era, is now at a record low level. This must be putting currencies under strain. So what do we see? An imbalance in the account, with South Africa committed to keeping a low interest rate to keep the economy going, leaves South Africa as not the destination for making a quick buck on interest it used to be. The differential between South African interest rates and overseas interest rates used to be in the region of 6 or 7%. One can see that that has now declined to about 5%. Is that enough to keep the money in South Africa? During the latter half of 2012, we did see a weakening in exchange rates. This has improved in recent months, but the threat remains the same. On top of this, one must add carbon taxes. Carbon taxes are increased slightly during 2014 for some vehicles. However, full-blown carbon emission taxes will be brought in from 1 January 2015 and phased up to full level by 2020. Based on a 120 rand per tonne charge. A policy paper explaining all of this will be published in March 2013. What this does is leave South African businesses exposed to energy prices. The consumer price index is in red. There are your oil price increases, and there are your electricity price increases. This is all before the massive increases that are due to be charged in March for fuel, then fuel levy, which will come on the 1st of April, and then Eskom, which is increased in June every year. The overall effect on South African companies can be staggering. There's the consumer price index. There is the increase in the price of platinum in rand. There is the increase in the price of fuel, and there is the increase in the price of electricity. Only gold can keep ahead of Eskom. Overall conclusions. Pravin Gordhan is a kind man. He could have asked for a lot more from the South African taxpayer. However, he is going to have to face the music with the rating agencies. Will they accept this, or will they downgrade South Africa again? That's the big question. Business has to react to this budget by taking note. The rand is vulnerable. Energy prices are increasing. Carbon taxes are on the way, and we are thus facing an energy crisis in business. It's time to sit down and see what can be done about it.